to show us how to make our dustpan out of a piece of metal. Our dustpan sizes that we need for our metal is 12 by 15. If we measure this piece of metal, it is 2 foot, and it is up to 4 foot. This piece has already had 2 pieces cut out of it. So we are going to be cutting 15 inches up across, and we'll cut it at 12 inches. So we do that by adjusting right here. Using these 2 small knobs, and we move it to where we need it. Our little pointers are pointing to 15 on both sides. This is my 2 foot direction. I've got my piece of metal up against my little side stop. I'm going to slide it in all the way up until it touches this back stop. I'm going to step on this yellow step. And we cut it. So next we need to cut this in half. And right down the middle here, we need to switch this back to 12 inches. My pointer is pointing to 12 inches. I can go ahead and cut this. Again, my piece of metal is all the way up against this side stop, and we have to bump it up against this back stop. You and your partner now have 2 pieces that are ready for the dustpan. All of our tools out. We have a marking or measuring gauge. We have a scratching tool, like an awl would work. We have 2 different kinds of tin snips, and we have a measuring tool. We also have a set of directions. We have all the steps you need, and we have the drawing, which is what I will basically be going through. So the very first lines that we are going to be taking care of are lines A, D, and C on my drawing. If you look over here, there is a dimension with the arrows pointing to it, and it extends off to where A is, and it says it's a 1/4 inch. So we're going to use this, which is the marking gauge. It's set at 1/4 inch right now. It's got a little scratching part here. We just have to slide this off the edge and make sure we are keeping in contact with the metal the whole way across. Nice and slow does it. Just want to get a good line in there. Hopefully you can see what's happening there. Line right there. Back to our drawing here. If you look at the next measurement, from line to line, it is 1 1/4. But that doesn't work for this tool. We have to add these 2 measurements together. So 1 1/4 plus 1/4 is 1 1/2. So we're going to set this up for 1 1/2. Again, we're going to slide it off the edge. Notice I'm holding it up here closer to the end. And I'm going to scratch a line across. Alright. Same thing again. Yeah, the third line says from line to line is 2 1/2, but we have to add all of these up. So this was 1 1/2 altogether, plus 2 1/2 is 4. So I got it set up to 4 inches. I'm going to hold it clear up here. Draw myself a line. Right, so my next 2 are going to be these 2 lines. And if we look, our measurement is right here. From the edge to that line is 2 1/2 inches. We can assume it is the same over here. We will set this up for 2 1/2 inches. We'll turn our piece of metal and do that on each side. Things are starting to look like what we have on our paper. Next thing I like to take care of is my 2 tabs. And it says right here they are 1/2 inch wide. If we want to use this, we have to do a little math. So it was 2 1/2 inches from side to side, and that's 1/2, so we want to set it up for 2 inches. just going to draw inside of those 3 lines. So we have our little boxes where our tabs go. We can use a scratching tool to finish those in. So if you set your paper down just like how our dustpan is laid out, you can copy these into those tabs. Don't have to be anything perfect, 45 degrees or so, just something so that you can see it. Same thing over here. So I've got the tab set. The top half is all the way done. Now we have to get our angles right here. So on our paper it says from C, which is this line, we're going to measure down 1 inch and make a mark. And it says from this line, which is B on the paper, we measure over 3/8 of an inch and make a mark. So we're going to get our ruler out and our scratching tool, and we are going to measure all this stuff out. And so I've got 3/8 of an inch. I'm making a mark. I'm going to do it on both sides since I'm already right here. Notice I'm marking only on the edge. We can use this as a straight edge, so I'm going to hit both my marks and draw myself a line. Do that on both sides. If you look at my paper, there are 2 lines, and over here it says they are 1/4 of an inch wide. I am going to just mark it roughly 1/4 inch. It's not such a huge deal with this mark. If you need to measure, go ahead. So here is our dustpan. This triangle out here gets cut on this line. This triangle, same thing. We're going to cut this big rectangle out and then come back for our little triangles. Same thing on the other side. So that is our next install. Just begin cutting our dustpan out. We have 2 different kinds of tin snips here, left hand and right hand. If you look at the lowest side of the jaw for the cutting surface, the low side goes towards what you're cutting away. So for example, this piece here, we want to remove this little triangle. This would not work because the low jaw is towards what we want to keep. This would work because the low jaw is towards what we want to get rid of. So keep that in mind, it makes life easier. Hopefully this is in view here. So little cuts at a time, and then you might have to lift up the metal to get it out of your way. This is not like a pair of scissors where you can take a big cut all at once. It's little pieces. This can take some hand strength, so sometimes you might have to use 2 hands. Do the best you can. Low side is still towards what I want to cut off because I've turned the piece of metal around. Any surface that you guys are cutting is going to be very sharp, so please be careful. I don't know if you have noticed or not, every time I grab a piece of metal, it is with fingertips. My palm is never up against the metal, because if I slide, I will cut myself pretty bad. Right. So this will not work. My low jaw is towards what I want to keep. This will, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this. Cutters. Rinse and repeat. back for our little triangles. Almost done. Make sure you throw away your pieces of metal after you're all done. Don't just leave them on the table for someone else to possibly get hurt on. Now we have everything cut out, it is time to do some bending. Alright, so this tool is called a pan brake. This is what we are going to be bending all of this up with. Our first thing we're going to do, hopefully you can see, is all of our little 1/4 inch lines. We're going to fold all the way over and then pound it flat on a hammer, or with a hammer I should say. Basically this makes it so that it's not sharp. I would never want to rub my hand on that because it will slice me wide open. So this prevents us from getting hurt later. So you can pull this arm down and the jaws will pinch on your piece of metal. Just want to line up this edge with your line, and you're going to lift this all the way up as far as it goes. Slide it back underneath, and you're going to pull on that handle. You're going to do that 3 times. So notice how these are all folded over. Normally I would go and take the hammer and flatten this out a little bit, but in the interest of saving a take and more editing, I'm going to just move on. But notice how I can rub my hand on this. I'm not going to get cut on it. That's the whole purpose of it. So our next step is to bend this 90 degrees and bend this 90 degrees. Stick her in here. And we're just going to go 90 degrees. This is something you should sneak up on. Be as straight up and down as you can. When you're bending these, make sure that you don't mess up and bend the second one like this, because then it gets stuck in there and we have to just yank it out and possibly wreck your dustpan. So the second one should be done like this. And again, 90 degrees, straight up and down. Alright, so our dustpan is starting to come together. We're going to bend on this line next, and then this line second. These little gaps are for the dustpan to fit into. That way it will still work. That's why it's called a pan brake. We can make a pan with it. We'll line up in those lines. We're going to try to help these sides inside of my tabs. You don't want to force it, you just want to bring it up, so if you look in there, the metal is just touching itself. If you look at it this way, there's a little gap. When you push on it just a little bit, it's nice and tight. Right. If this is taller than this line, we need to trim this down to match. If it is lower than, we're not going to worry about it so much, but hopefully they line up nice and easy like that. So again, we're just going to help things in. We don't want to force it. If we force too hard, we make it have a little dent in it. So this is about as far as you can get it without making like a crease right here. Just squeeze it with your hands and get it so it's close. So the next step is to do a little bit of hammering. Is to try to make these fit nice and tight to each other. So we're going to do that with this. Think of it like an anvil. So here's our hammer. Basically we're going to be making contact with that the whole time. This will never change, but how we move the dustpan will. We'll give it a little squeeze. Tap on it lightly, don't have to go hard. If you hit it too hard, you actually stretch the metal and create other problems. So if you notice, everything fits nice and tight. We are ready to do our welding. Alright, so we are ready to weld our dustpan together. This is how we turn it on. There's a little light switch right here. Flip it on. This whole box is a timer. Do not mess with this. It's already set where it needs to be. Basically, this all works by pressing this down, and these make contact with each other. There's a little black lever right here. I'll turn it so you can see it. Little black lever. You hear it, listen real close, you'll hear it turn on and turn off. I'm just going to push and hold. It will do everything else for me. So listen. Okay, so that's on and off. So I'm going to put one weld here and then two on the side. You just have to hold it in place where you need it. Stick it in place, pinch and hold, and then push and hold that lever. We're going to do the same thing down here. Notice I've got 3 spot welds. Same thing on the side. This is generally much easier if you have a second pair of hands to help hold or push the button for you. So as you can see, we've got 3 good welds. You could push on them real hard and nothing's going to break. If you push on it and it breaks, you didn't get it welded good enough. Alright. So next thing we need to do is make our handle. Alright, here we are back at the pan brake. Back on this window, I've got blanks already made for the handle. Ignore what it says on the directions, because it says to use a wood dowel. This is much better. You need a piece that is 2 inches wide, 12 inches long. Being as these edges are cut edges, they're going to be sharp, so you're not going to want to grab onto something like this. So we're going to fold the edges over, just like we did on the dustpan. And if you look very carefully, see there's a little split line right here. That is conveniently a 1/4 inch. So we can just line the edge of our handle up with that line and go crazy. So again, the next step would be to go over to the anvil and take a hammer and poke this down. I'm going to save another take and just continue on. We'll just say that this is all flat. This is where you would find a dustpan over in our example pile and just copy that handle. One thing that we need to be aware of is which way we need to bend things. So if you notice, when the handle is on like this, it's nice and flat here. That will weld nice. If we put it like this, there's a gap. That will not weld nice. So you have to kind of keep that in mind. Okay, so we need to bend this down. Okay, so I'm going to say it's going to be right about here. That'll give me a nice place to hang on to. And that needs to go down 90 degrees. So it's going to be the top side. We're going to get the return here. Usually I just line it up with the edge here. 90 degrees again. Okay. And then we're going to have our fold down. So I'll have to open it up just a little bit to make that happen. Get it down here. And now we just need to manipulate this so that it works for us. Try to get it so it's nice and tight, and I actually lucked out. That's one of the first times I got it right the first time. So now we need to spot weld this together. Ready to weld this together. If you would like to try to make it so your dustpan looks really nice, the easiest way to do that is to get the handle centered. So if it's off even a little bit, it will look a little funny. So try to get it right as in the middle as you can. I have a mark here, which I'm sure isn't showing up on camera, but I've got it lined up here. Basically, we're going to hold it like this, flip it upside down, and slide it over. This would be much easier with the second pair of hands. So hopefully everything stays put where it needs to be. So you see we've got 3 welds. Try to do them in a triangular pattern. There's more strength to it. We'll do the same thing here. So we've got 3 spot welds there, 3 spot welds there. That should be enough to hold it. To test this, and I'll just try to turn the tripod. Looks like I've got it in view. Well, just take it, tap on it a couple times. Don't have to do it super hard. If this sounds solid like that, you should be good. If you want to test these also, you can. Alright, so nothing broke. Handle's still nice and tight. Complete the dustpan.